Jane wandered the dark alleys of Gladsheim's shady harbor district without much care. She knew that this place was filled to the brim with the worst vermin of all of Jormungandr, the continent the demonic eldritch being was currently residing on. However, she knew that none of the things she might encounter here would be even remotely as bad as the creature she was seeking to banish. Her own leader, a woman called Ramosteen, or for short, Ramos, the leader of one of the largest scientific organizations in all of Jormungandr. Jane had suspicions of her own mistress to undermine the very realm they were living in, and she knew how bad this would be for everyone involved, especially the population of the continent. There was also a personal motive for her actions, which tied back to the reason why she was in the services of the creature which called herself Leviathan at times. Ramos had altered her memories, so in a desperate attempt to resolve all of these issues, she found herself here, in front of one of Gladsheim's many bars and clubhouses, the center of the so-called Sinners Motorcycle Club. She had tried to address the issue with an official of the royal court, the Archmage Yukara Crassius at first. Yukara, however, was incapable of breaking the good relationships Ramos had with the crown, just based on suspicion. So instead, she referred Jane to some old friends of hers. Friends that wouldn't be abiding by the laws of the country either. She approached the heavy wooden door of the address she was given and rose one hand to knock firmly against the wood. "Miss Yukara sent me," she said with a confident voice. And the door swung open, just to reveal an impossibly tall, muscular woman with short brown hair and red eyes, which looked directly down at Jane. "She already told us, yeah. Come on in." With these words, Jane entered the stuffy, smoke-filled building. It reeked of alcohol, blood, and various other despicable things she could no longer truly fathom. Everywhere was the crest of the MC, a giant horned devil's skull. Once she entered the room, two giant hellhounds charged her, but were only stopped mere seconds before reaching her by a tall, red-skinned, dark-haired, abyss-born male which eyed her with a suspicious look. "Skull, Hearty, back!" "You're Jane, right?" The two hellhounds growled, yet walked back to their master. "Yeah, I am Jane. Are you aware of my strong suspicions about my employer, mister?" she asked the male. The man shook his head, yet grinned knowingly at Jane. "Nope, but I'm not the one you want to speak to anyways. Nia!" Jane could see two more doors swing open, and she could see a tall woman with blonde hair come out of a closed room. Her hands were covered in blood, and she was wearing two brass knuckles. The blonde smirked at Jane.
"Oh, hi there. Nia Nebizach, president of Sinners MC. Come on, sit down."
Nia offered a seat to Jane, which she gladly accepted. The abyss-born blonde walked over to the bar and picked up an expensive-looking bottle of some strong liquor. Walking back to the table, she sat down and poured both of them a drink. And Jane started speaking. "Good evening, Miss Nia. I am Demon Lord Ascended Janice Xilith Inizora the 14th. It's a long title, but you can just call me Jane," she said before offering a respectful courtesy. She then sits as comfortably as she can, using her tail coiled neatly as a seat. She takes a small sip of the drink to get a feel for it, offering a slightly intriguing expression at the strength and flavor of the drink. "A little strong for my tastes, but not bad," she concludes.
"A little something we brought ourselves here. So, Yukara sent you here, Jane. I know that. But otherwise, I'm pretty much lost,"
she said while taking a swig as well, cleaning her knuckles with a towel to wipe the blood off. She then places them aside, just to lean forth a little, exposing the various tattoos on her arms.
"So, Jane, why do you want to meet with us? What's up?"
Jane adjusted her seat once more, and started to explain to the president of the MC why she was meeting her. "I have strong reason to suspect that my boss, a woman known as Ramos Leviathan for short, has altered my memory significantly. The spawn of the Great Old Ones has no business meddling in mortal affairs, or with quietly assembling armed forces to assist the kingdom in its time of need." I've seen guardsmen with worse equipment than some of our security personnel. The purple thing is a danger to our realm, Jane said with a meaning heavy voice. Nia only chuckled and crossed her arms, shaking her head a little as she listened to what the woman had to say. She rubbed one of her temples with her fingers and rose an eyebrow.
Pretty righteous of you to act in the best interest of the realm, but thing is, I ain't in the service of the realm no more, but that's good for you. Means that I'm not bound to respect boundaries, and I can give that little purple bitch a little smack. Though we ain't working for free. If we gotta help you, you gotta pay us.
There was a glint to Nia's eyes, an almost demented, vicious glow that told Jane that she wasn't opposed to the idea of killing a great old one, nor to inflict pain on them. It was all just a question of the price. I'd like you to smack her around enough to give me a solid chance to root through her collection of books and find a way to banish her for good. Then we can talk splitting up the Leviathan's riches. I'm sure there's something in her collection worth the effort. Try not to kill her blacksmith, please. I'd like the lava golem to assist in the sudden change of leadership. Nia's eyes lit up with intrigue. Apparently she was as violent as she was greedy.
What are we talking here? Stealthy little mission? Or full-on wreaking havoc on her? Because we're gonna do the latter, might need to get the cartel to help us out. But Cassian, the leader of the cartel, where riches ain't interesting to him. You need to cut a deal with him later on, after this thing's done.
With these words, Nia got up, crossing her arms and looking down at Jane, who was still sitting at her place.
If you're set on hiring us, wanna meet the rest?
She said, referring to the rest of her gang of misfits. A little of both. Slip into the top floor of a building, then get noisy once I've got you past the main security teams. I'll provide you with details of the security wards. I helped place them myself so I can get detailed information about their workings. She explains while uncoiling herself and scooting back to allow them room to lead the way. Go ahead, Miss Nerbisek, the plant then said politely.
Great. Well, you met our Beastmaster, Mammon, already. The lass over there with the sword that currently meditates, that's my sister Farka.
She pointed to a woman with messy hair, an eye patch, and a scar-torn face.
The girl at the door, that's Fiorella Drumwalk. Oh, well, bouncer and proficient in anything messy and bloody.
She pointed to the tall girl at the door, and then she turned to a heavily scarred girl with metal improvements all over her body, and a face mask covering her mouth.
Ouroboros Crassius, our cyborg, and daughter of Yukara, the girl that sent you here.
Quite the gang you've got going. I'm rather impressed so far. As for the relative of that colorful acquaintance of mine, let's say I'm impressed by the several features. She says, while looking the cyborg girl over, which already eyed her with suspicious eyes. Is the metalwork enchanted in any way? She asks, scanning her closer in particular. Ouroboros just stared at Jane. Her eyes grew wide and she spoke in a raspy voice that alternated between high and low pitches.
It runs on an unsaturated crystalline amber core, fueled by my hatred for any living organic being. For the vermin that cause my lungs to be staved by acid, irreparably damaging my body to its accursed, rotting form.
The way she spoke implied that every word put her through great effort and pain. I see. I know a lich who's very good at repairing vocal cords. I'll have to send her your way when I see her next, she says, offering at least a minor ease to her ailment. Though I'm not familiar with amber, I'm afraid I won't be able to offer any serious help there, she then adds. Jane is smart, especially in magic, and polite to a fault, it seems.
I do not need help,
Ouroboros says, just to slowly get up.
I have found enlightenment in pain, strength in suffering. I can break the feeble body of this Leviathan, rend her flesh and make her scream in agony that any mortal will grow mad over. And even if she returns at all, I will only laugh and go on. If pain is your companion through life, you embrace its strength and numb its weaknesses.
Once Ouroboros was done with her rambling, Nia turned to Jane.
There are two more to our gang. Far and Blanc, but they are out on a mission at the moment. Far is our sergeant-at-arms, and Blanc is currently making our weapons.
I'm rather impressed by a gang of fighters, who I can only assume are very good at what they do. The plan says to Nia, scanning over the motley assortment of brigands in the pub. "Now, what payment do you require?" "As I mentioned before, I can offer parts of Lady Leviathan's wealth, but I assume a down payment is in order," she says while rummaging for a roughly arm-sized sack. It seems empty and floppy and flimsy, but she pulls its opening apart and digs through it for an ingot of pure gold, slamming it onto a handy table with a loud thunk. "How many?" she asks Nia with a proud smile on her green face.
Ha! How about 10 each?
Nia said with a big grin, holding out her hand to Jane.
And the stuff with Cassian, if we need it, you'll handle on your own.
Ouroboros then grabbed Jane's shoulder, pulling her close, that her eyes were right up against Jane's.
Make it 5 for me, under the condition that I get to crush that cockroach Leviathan myself for the trouble she caused my mother.
"Deal," Jane whispered back to the Abyssborn. "I'm going to provide roof access and a route past the security wards. Then I'm off for her library to collect the informations and items I need to banish her. I need you and your fine warriors to handle her personal bodyguards and her own rather lacking sparring skills until I complete the ritual to see her off from this world for good. No mess, no fuss, no need to get the crown involved directly either." Having addressed the group, she starts producing ingots from a seemingly empty bag until the required number have been stacked neatly on various tables on the bar top.
Sounds like a plan. You know where to find us then.
Nia grinned widely, all the while she got back to storing the ingots in a large safe. She then looked at Fiorella.
Tell Cassian about that deal. I'm also going to get a few of our durium weaponry ready for that job.
Fiorella nodded towards Nia, before addressing Jane as well.
"Alright, boss."
"Yo, Jane, come on out. We got things to prepare now. We'll get into contact with you once we're done." Jane obliged and followed the larger Abyssborn outside. She was questioning if she had hired the right people for the job. Not because she thought they were incapable, but because it was very questionable if they were actually trustworthy enough. She decided that it wasn't the moment to think about this. Now she was way too far gone to go back. It was her only left option, and she wouldn't go back on it now. Still pondering on her decisions, she slowly ventured into the dark night of Gladsheim streets.